It is now my pleasure to introduce our main speaker, Amy from Santa Barbara.
Hi, my name is Amy and I'm an alcoholic. This stuff makes me really nervous, so I have notes so I can keep on track. I've been sober for 17 years. I have a sponsor, I have a home group. It's called Reluctantly Willing. I was happy to have coined that term because I indeed am reluctantly willing still this long after first getting sober. Congratulations to Dakota for your birthday. That's a big deal. 1 year is hard. Congratulations to all the folks that took chips and all the newcomers, welcome. Thank you, Randy, for having me speak. Thanks, Scott, for the referral. And thanks for the support that came here today. It's funny, you drink so hard one night that you have to sit in a room and with a circle of people and talk about it for the rest of your life. That is indeed, I will tell you about my last night drinking, but I'll get to that. It's a little, it's a lot. But, I really like the spirit of people who are in AA. I really do. Even the people I don't like so much. But, we are funny little creatures, but we're also very resilient. We're very focused when we can get away from the drink, And that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I stopped drinking and my life started to transform, and it's continues to transform as long as I'm connected with Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things I most like about folks in Alcoholics Anonymous is that, last week or maybe 6 months ago, they were still in cars and robbing people. And they'll be like, they'll have about 6 months, and then they, you say fuck from the podium, and they get all pearl clutchy about it. They're like, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. It just tickles me. It just tickles me, the piousness. I got pious at some points, but it just tickles me. This is the kind of group that will do that, and I love it. We're also the kind of group that will they'll say, hey, I paid my parking tickets, which is a very normal thing to do, but not for us, right? And somebody will say, I paid my parking tickets, and everybody just cheers. They're just rolling hard, yes, because we know how hard it is when we have no money and no hope and no even reason to even want to pay a parking ticket, and that's how far down I got. I was very sad. I was almost mute, could not speak when I first got here. I was just filled with grief, and I do want to talk about that a little bit, but I'll tell you a little bit about my life before Alcoholics Anonymous. I think when I was about 2 or 3, I was such a hyper child that my mom just continually fed me coffee because she understood that was going to calm me down. It absolutely worked. So there was my first drug. She just gave me coffee a lot because I was just climbing the wall. I would literally climb the walls, and she couldn't get a handle on me. And I would often get in trouble for school for the same thing. I was a very good student. I often had straight A's, but the marks on my report cards was, she needs to buckle down. She needs to buckle down. And that was like my first resentment, I think. I'm like, well, I get straight A's and you're gonna have like some bad mark on me about buckling down, but I just couldn't. I just was constantly full of, just energy, that needed to be tapped down somehow. And even in, by the time I got to high school, still doing very well in school, I was basically like, your model student. But they thought I was on drugs before I even started doing drugs. They pulled me aside. I got my bag searched, and, I got pulled aside to the principal's office, like, you're on drugs. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And then I did start turning to that stuff. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but 7-Eleven used to sell mini thins. And mini thins were this little speed, right? So we would get mini thins on the way to school at the 7-Eleven, and we would get our little bid gulps, and we'd just get, super high, to continue on and have a better time, during the school day. Beyond that, I started meeting people who were doing a little bit heavier stuff. I won't consider it heavy now, but started smoking weed, and then I started drinking. But the first time I smoked weed, and I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous and we're focused on alcohol, but I will talk about the other things that happened because they led me to drinking, or they helped me drink. So I started smoking weed, and the first time I did that, I knew exactly why they did it. And I don't think I'd laughed so hard in my entire life. I thought this was the greatest thing. And I liked the combo of drinking and smoking weed. Just really liked it. It was enjoyable to me. And I continued to do that all the way to, I think I was about to go off to college, or I had taken like 2 years of school, was about to transfer. And I stopped drinking for a summer. There were various reasons why I did it, but I stopped drinking for a summer. But as soon as I moved to San Francisco, I grew up in a little valley town, which was very conservative, church-oriented, and very shameful if you were not in a church, and I was not. My parents didn't believe in organized religion, so I got, some sort of idea that God wasn't something that I wanted to be aligned with, right? And so I'll get to my story about how I rectified that. But I lived in a very conservative area, and I moved to San Francisco, which was wide open, and as soon as I started drinking again, it was off. It was like the beast had been unleashed again, And I remember I was 19 years old and I wrote this letter to myself saying, I want to stop, but I can't. I can't. And it was such a sad letter, and I think I have it somewhere, but I remember reading it a few years ago and going, wow, I knew then that this was a problem that I couldn't control. But I had a great time. I lived in San Francisco. We lived above a bar. It was a perfect place for me to live. I was in a band, and I was, doing really well in school and doing all of the things that were just joyful, happy things. I wasn't having a lot of problems. I was just doing a lot of drunk girl stuff, which is most of my story. It's just stupid drunk girl stuff. You guys think Girls Gone Wild? Yeah, it was just dumb stuff. I think one time, I don't know if you guys know the bar, the Creekside in Santa Barbara. That's where I'm from, by the way. I remember I duct taped this guy to the stripper pole there. I would do dumb stuff like that. It's just like, I'm not really in trouble. I wasn't really getting in trouble. I was just doing dumb stuff, And I do remember I drank about 3 double Bloody Marys, and I got in the car, and I was about to get this job as a newspaper reporter, and I drove, and I got pulled over for running a red light because I was looking at him instead of the lights. I was like, oh shit, a cop. I ran a red light and he pulled me over. Somehow I got out of it. I wasn't getting consequences. Somehow I just did the whole deal and followed the pen and did the foot and all the things, and he's like, I'm just gonna write you a ticket. I was like, okay, cool. Which was interesting because I would have lost that job because I was required to have a driver's license, and the consequence just didn't happen. So I got this dream job, and it was down in Bakersfield, California. I was working at the newspaper there, and I loved it, and I had this boyfriend. We got married, and I had everything that I really wanted in my life. I was a crime reporter. I was going off onto scenes where there were murders and stuff, and it was just what I wanted to do. I was really super interested in it. And a month into that marriage, it was done. It was done, but it wasn't done. I couldn't leave. And I'm looking at, the cops are there, and I'm looking at the blood dripping down from my mouth on the carpet and going, fuck, my dad just paid for this wedding. I can't do it. And that's when the shame really started setting in. And I know a lot of people may not understand what it's like for domestic violence victims or why they don't leave. I can tell you right now, if I would have left, it would have got worse. And when I did leave, it got worse. And if I wouldn't have bailed him out, I would have had a worse night than I would have already had, and I didn't have the money either to leave. So I'm sitting there with all the shame, and I remember the bail bondsman looking at me with disgust. Look what he did to you. Why are you doing this? And I just kept drinking. And alcoholism loves shame. Oh my God, it loves shame. And it also loves isolation and secrets, which was my secret. I mean, I was, doing my job during the day and going along just fine according to everybody else, but I was also going home and drinking harder than I ever had before. So eventually we moved to Santa Barbara. That's where he was from. So I ended up in Santa Barbara, and it was still progressing. My drinking was progressing. I didn't get a job right away, and all I would do is drink all day. And I remember I'd go out with these girlfriends, and one of our little schemes when we didn't have money to buy drinks was we'd just go into the bars and yell, 21! And so we'd get everybody to buy drinks for us. We'd pretend it was our 21st birthday, we were stoked. We were stoked, and that's what we would do. We had, we were little scammers, And I remember one night we got so drunk, I don't know if you had the friends that wandered off. You ever have, or were the friend that wandered off? We became the friends that wandered off away from the group that we were with. And we were so drunk. I remember we got in a cab, and she was like, I'm hungry, let's go to Taco Bell. And she was banging on the guy's, dashboard saying, go through the drive-through, but there wasn't one. There wasn't one. And he's like, get out. And we're like, okay. So, we got our Taco Bell, and then we realized we were so drunk we couldn't find our way home. I literally couldn't read the street signs. I was so drunk. And we knew we were somewhere on Bath Street, I think. And we had to surrender and have somebody come rescue us, right? We were like, okay, yeah, we ran off, can you come get us? But we wouldn't really tell them where we were. And I remember her going, tell them we're at the corner of Drunky McDrunkerson and Bath. And like, I'm like, we're at Drunky McDrunkerson and Bath. And like, my husband was so pissed. And she's all, tell him he'll know it's us by the beans on our faces. So we sat on the corner eating our burritos, like, you know, like you do when you're super drunk, right? But at that point, you know, the drinking kind of wasn't, it wasn't fixing here and here. Like, it wasn't taking away my thoughts, and it wasn't taking away my feelings. And it was that was problematic to me. And I remember my favorite play is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and there's a character in that, his name is Brick, and he talks about his drinking, and he says he drinks until he gets the click in his head, and then he's fine. But I wasn't getting the click anymore. I totally related to him, but I wasn't getting the click anymore. But I kept going, because, you know, once you get to that point, I mean, it's not fixing things, it's not helping things, there's a little bit of trouble, but then I felt super betrayed by it. I felt super betrayed by my only solution, or my only way to kind of maintain. And I started grieving the process of the betrayal of booze, you know, and I strongly believe that addiction is grief, and grief is love with no place to go. And so we're a room full of people grieving something, or multiple things, and we're coping somehow, but it really, the root problem is grief and fear. So along with that shame that I was feeling, and all the isolation I was feeling from being I guess a battered wife, I guess, and you know, the way people look at you or think about you, or even how I'm ashamed to even talk about it now. I ended up with, like, you know, a really amazing person who treated me really well, but then I kind of came to and remembered that I forgot to get divorced. And I was not practicing the principles in all of my affairs. I was not doing that. But I eventually ran. I took off. I ran. I did trial run, and then I ran. And a friend said, I know a safe place for you to go. It's safe. You go to this person's house. I didn't know this guy. I went to his house, and he was in AA. He was sober. And I was like, oh, well, okay, well, I won't drink out of respect. You know, I did have some moral compass, you know, and I just noticed that I really liked his life. I really liked his life. He had this crazy, amazing, fun, wild life. And I remember admitting for the first time, I have not had one day sober in the last 5 years. Not one day, even when I had the flu. I mean, we all know what we do, get NyQuil, have those NyQuil dreams, you know, whatever we have to do. Or we're making hot toddies. Hot toddies are the way to cure any sort of flu, right? I mean, so, you know, I'm going to drink through everything. And I remember not drinking when I was at his place, and then I went back to my place, and I'm going through the divorce, and, you know, what are you going to, you're going through a divorce, of course you're going to drink, right? And I'm super messed up. I can't find any solutions to anything. Like, I don't know what to do. And I know he's a problem, and he's all the problem, right? It's not me. He's all the problem. And, you know, that's justified. Of course, everybody would be like, yeah, he's the problem. But so I remember going out with the same friend, the Drunky McDrunkerson friend, and I was on a bender. We had about a 3-day bender. And I remember we went to these cops' house to party. And I don't know, don't ask me. We were at these cops' house to party, and there was a swimming pool in this complex that we were out. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm too hot in this sauna that we were in, or the hot tub that we were in. And it was like, I'm going to get in the pool. And I jumped in the pool. And I hit the bottom. And I was like, fuck, I'm a little hurt. My head's bleeding. You know, we ended up going home, going back to her place. And I was like, remember staring in the mirror, looking at the blood dripping down my head, you know, because I have this big scar. Big scar right here, because where I hit the bottom. And I remember contemplating, like, I didn't want the party to stop. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't want the party to stop. And I remember drinking my last drink, and it was like a white wine spritzer or something, which I never drink. Ugh, no. And I was drinking it, going, all right, okay, fine, we'll go to the hospital. And we ended up going to the hospital. And I remember that it just being very chaotic, and I was being dumb, and they were cutting my clothes off because they needed to put me through an MRI machine to make sure everything was fine, right? And I was flirting with them as they're cutting my clothes off. I mean, I just could not take anything seriously. I was just like, nah. And I remember the doctor coming in, he said, your neck's broken. And your back's broken. And all the air went out of the room just like it did just now. Oh, fuck. And it was like, I I can't cheeky my way out of this one. Like, I can't cutesy my way out of this one. I can't, it's done. It's done. So I remember texting that guy that I met, the guy that I went to his house for a minute. It was like, I told him what happened, and I was like, I think it's time. And he said, moment of clarity, perhaps. And I said, what do I do? And he recommended 3 books, and one of them was the same book that I have right now, The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, read it. So I did. And a lot of it seemed kind of confusing, but I kind of was like, I understand the concept kind of, about what they're trying to do here. And I read it all, and I think I went to a meeting or two. As soon as I got my neck brace off, I remember I went to a meeting, you got to look nice if you're going to go to an AA meeting. I didn't want to be they'd know, right? They would know exactly how that happened. I couldn't, So I waited till the neck brace off, I went to a meeting, and it just wasn't quite jiving. He's like, I need you to meet me at Muddy Waters. There's a meeting there. I'm gonna introduce you to some people. And I met the people that saved my life. One of those girls was just the most bigger than life, funny, like loud, crazy girl, and she scooped me up and said, come with me. And I was so happy because she was so cool, and that was so important to me that I was with the cool kids, But I was even, I couldn't even barely talk still, and like I wanted to try. And so you start the journey of Alcoholics Anonymous was just the 12 steps, right? And I didn't have too much like resistance to it. I was so sad. I knew at that time that I thought it'll get me to stop drinking, but it's not going to fix this. And I wanted to be fixed so bad. I just wanted to be fixed. And the thing is like, we don't need to be fixed. We're not broken. We have alcoholism. We're not broken. We're just alcoholic. And it's not of our faults, and it happened, and we did what we thought we had to do to survive. It's just keep drinking. So I think when I've heard the steps explained very, very quickly, 1, 2, 3, I have a problem, I need help, and I can't do it alone. That's it. You're done. Lots of people do lots of writing and stuff, and they want to, maintain, start conceptual higher power and all of this stuff, and I think that's great. But truly, it is, I can't do this. I have this problem. I need help, and I can't do it alone. And so we move on to, to writing. But I'm also a firm believer that we get exactly what we seek, no matter if we're sober or not. We get exactly what we seek. We get exactly what we seek. And I remember going to Big Book studies and reading this literature, and there's a bunch of stuff in the book that I really love, but one of my favorite lines is, God does not make too hard of terms to those who seek him. And I didn't know about this God thing, because obviously I had this conservative Christian Trumpland version of God that was shameful, and there was often times in my sobriety that I thought, no, the God is the one that's pointing and laughing at me right now. I truly felt that way. Like, it took me a while to sort of get a concept that I was going to rely on, and that's really important. And even, I think for a lot of the very beginning, it was just the group. It was the program itself, and just doing what was suggested in the book. And I get a little funny when I hear stuff about the rules, because I'm not a rule follower, and I'll break a lot of them, and I'm not a spiritual giant or anything. I get in trouble for breaking the rules. I break the rules a lot, but it's not in the book, and I'll say, that's not in the book. Tell me in the book where that is, and generally it's not, it's based off experience, which I respect and honor, but there's just a lot of rules that I'm just not down to party with, but I still stayed sober. But I did understand pretty quickly that I was going to need to put something between me and the drink, and whatever that was going to be. It was going to be meetings, it was going to be painting my nails, it was going to be talking with friends, it was going to be going down to the park for a walk, it was going to just be something. And there were so many days that I promised myself, I'm just going to have to drink tomorrow because I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I'll drink tomorrow. And for some reason that gave me some sort of like relief, the thought that I was going to get to drink, that I would get through that day, and by the next day I'd be okay. I didn't have to drink that day. And if you're new, you don't ever have to drink again from this day on. You don't have to. We have a compulsion to do it. We're built to it. We have to understand that we have this allergy. I have this allergy. It's like an itch I can't scratch. As soon as I start drinking, there's just not enough that I can get in me that makes it all stop, if I don't have a spiritual solution. I have this obsession of the mind. I obsess about all kinds of things. It's not just alcohol, but you take the alcohol away and let me figure out all the things I'm going to obsess about, right? And truly, I mean, I'll just, some new hobby or some new whatever, work or whatever it's going to be. That's just how my mind works. And then I have this spiritual sickness. I have a sickness that needs a spiritual solution. And really, spirituality is being connected. It doesn't have to be this Christian God, or it doesn't have to be any other concept of God, but staying connected. And I think that's truly a part that's helped keep me sober, is staying connected. For a disease that wants me isolated and shameful, the antidote is staying connected. And there's taken a lot of long, dark walks in the woods in my head to know that staying connected is a little bit better. At least there's somebody else that can maybe see me or tell me a new thought. Because I don't also have a drinking problem, I have a thinking problem. The way I think about things is just kind of wild. The stories I tell myself, I am the only person that will get in fights. Well, maybe I'm not the only one. We'll get in fights with people in my head and I'll lose. How? I'm the one making up the fight, and I'll lose the fights, And I'm like, and then they said, and then I was like, I hurt my own feelings, over stuff that hasn't even happened. And so it's interesting because you get to this, the fourth step. Oh my God, the fourth step. And I was really stoked to do it. I was like, you're going to let me write down and tell you in very great detail about all these shitheads? I'm done. Like L7, blasting L7. You made my shit list. I'm just like, I'm into it. I'm going to tell you all about this bastard, and what they did to me, But it's kind of funny because a lot of people will get to this and we're like, okay, so listen. Here's the deal. If you admit you have alcoholism and you think you're alcoholic, really what's going to happen is you're going to be institutionalized either in a mental institution or jail, or you're going to die. You're probably going to die. So all you have to do, and they're like, yeah, oh, I don't want those things. Yeah, what do I got to do? I said, well, here, take this piece of paper and just start writing down people you hate. And they're like, oh, no, that's a little too much. That's a little too much. I think I'm busy. I have things to do. I have, but that's all it is. I mean, that's how you make a start. You just start writing down people you hate. And I was really grateful to have some influence from people who, obviously for the things that I had gone through, I wasn't all that trusting of people. And there's more to my story that made that very true. Like, why should I trust people? And someone said, you don't have to. And I was like, what? They're just trust the process. You don't have to trust people. Just trust the process. And I was grateful for someone to tell me that, because it gave me my ends. It gave me my little ends to stay. God does not make too hard to terms to those who seek him. Okay, there's my little in. There's my little in. I don't have to trust these people. I have to trust the process. There's my little in. That's what keeps me in. But also, the deep depression that I was in, it was very hard to move through that. I mean, when someone would tell me pain is temporary, and I'm like, no, keep it. I love that cozy little blanket of pain. I just love to cozy up with it and feel it. It was almost like an addiction in itself. It was just what was so familiar to me, which is so sad, but a lot of us are like that. We've been in so much pain, so much grief. It's the only thing we have familiar, and we start going away from it. We don't know where we're at anymore. That's what happened to me. And I also learned that with that fourth step, oh God, the fourth step, I am most uncomfortable when I'm fighting the truth about something. And it's period. I'm uncomfortable when I'm fighting the truth about something. And if all this is trying to figure out the truth, there's my little in. Okay, we're just going to try to figure out the truth of the matter. Yeah, he indeed is an asshole, but what's next? You can't stop there because you're going to continue to be in that grief, and we got to get that grief out. We got to solve this grief. We got to get it healed. And it's amazing that we're all these, amazing bunch of people, and that's what we do. We heal each other. And we're the only ones qualified because nobody else understands us. Nobody else understands, like why we do the things we do, because it's crazy. It's crazy that I would break my neck and want to drink again. Normal people don't do that. And that's why I was like, you ever wondering if you're alcoholic? Normal people don't want to drink after breaking their necks, so you're probably good with that assessment. So, you're going through your your list, of people that you hate and the reasons why. Well, I've learned that one of my favorite things to do, especially today, is to self-righteously judge self-righteous, judgmental people. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. But I have to turn around and go, all right, well, hang on a second. Am I being a dictum? I think I'm being a dictum. And what's a dictum? It's somebody who, makes themselves a victim in a problem they created. And they talk about that in a book, We stepped on the toes of our fellows, and they react seemingly without provocation. Somewhere along the line, we made a decision based on self that placed us in a position to be hurt. And sometimes it's a really hard truth to swallow, because I had to do that with this man that punched me in the face. I made a decision based off self somewhere along the way that put me in a position to be harmed. That's really hard to get through. It's just really hard to get through. But at least I didn't have to do it alone. And I certainly was around a bunch of people who I'm like today, that someone starts telling me about some person that wronged them in a really deep way, and they live across the country or something, and I'm looking up flight tickets, like, hold on a second, I'll go talk to them. Like, I'm vengeful, like, I'm all about justice. I'm like, let me get my earrings off, where is he? Where is he? And I have to temper that, because it's not the most spiritual way, and then I'm getting angry, and that doesn't really serve me. But what I've learned, that I really use anger as a shield. I'm thinking, if I stay angry, I won't get hurt anymore. I need to stay angry because it's my only way to protect myself. But really, is it protection? It's not. It's not protecting me from anything. And along with that other inventory, you start going into fear, And I've learned that it's not really that I fear the outcome of something. I fear that I won't be able to handle the outcome. And I tell a bunch of stories in my head about, well, obviously, we've got 3 scenarios that this is the way this is going to end up. Letter A, it's going to be a shit sandwich. B, it's going to be different shit, but still a shit sandwich. Or C, just another shit sandwich. There's no way out of this without me eating a shit sandwich. But then, I'm obviously not praying, because it always happens this way, that option D comes forth from my higher power, and I'm not eating any shit sandwiches, and I feel really humble. I'm like, oh, you didn't want me to eat a shit sandwich? Well, thank you. I guess I've spent about 6 months tripping out about that, but it was never what was really going to happen. That's the obsession of my mind, of trying to think that something terrible is going to happen when it's just not true. I'm not getting at the truth in any way. And especially when in fear, it's just I'm just relying totally on self. I'm just totally in self-reliance with my stories about the shit sandwiches, and I'm not staying connected with someone else. But like, what about this option? Have you thought about this? And I'm like, no, I just want to be mad, and I just want to be scared, and it feels familiar, and so I'm going to stay here. And the good thing is that the people that I talk about things, we all laugh about it. We're like, ah, ha, 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 ha. We're able to like realize what we're doing. There's another part in the book that really helped me early on, and it was talking about asking for God's protection with complete abandon, because I certainly was afraid, and I had a real good reason to be afraid. I had a legitimate reason to be afraid of that man who continued to stalk me for 5 years past divorce. I had a legitimate reason. I would go to meetings and hope I would be safe, and God, I was. And I started learning martial arts, and every time I went in that dojo, I knew I was going to be safe, because there's about 50 black belts would probably run out the door after him. I'd go places where I thought I was going to be safe until I could get to protect myself. And so I went along this that journey of martial arts and all of that, and continued doing these inventories. I remember that I had this cookie commitment one time, and these people kept saying my cookies were shit. Oh, they wanted me to bake them, and I'm not really a baker. And I felt this weird, like you can't give up a commitment. Like I felt this weird, and you can give up commitments. I did. I felt like I had to keep the commitment, but I felt like I was kind of being abused a little bit, with they didn't like my cookies. So I ended up having to do like a 5th step on it and a 4th step, right? But I wrote it all in a rap. So when I brought, because I can't take myself, Rule 62 is the most important rule. If you guys don't know what Rule 62 is, don't take yourself so seriously. So I wrote the whole thing in a rap to my sponsor about how this cookie commitment resentment that I had. And I ended up leaving the commitment and realizing we're volunteers. We're not to a prison sentence of some sort of unjust treatment or mistreatment. You know, we don't have to stay there. I don't believe you have to stay there. Go get another commitment. Go where people want you there, where they like your cookies. And we, they weren't that good cookies, but we move on from, you know, realizing what our parts are. We're really just talking about how our instincts are out of whack. You know, we have these instincts that we think we need to do things to survive, but they're not balanced. And it's like really interesting to think about that way, because of like, oh, well, all of these things all this trouble, all this conflict was really just because I had an instinct that was not balanced. Yes, exactly. And I really liked how Patrick C. from Thousand Oaks described it about, you know, to kind of get the idea of when you're doing a 6 and 7 step of what that means. And he's like, you can really break it down to the 7 deadly sins, I guess. There's greed, gluttony, wrath, pride, sloth, vanity, sorrow, and all these things that are out of balance. Like, you want to be able to have enough instinct to make money, to support yourself and your family, but you don't want to have to fuck somebody over to get that money. You know, you want to be able to have enough lust to be with your partner, you know, but you don't want to have so much lust you're fucking the neighbor, frankly, you know. So you got to examine these things, and you go, is my instinct to survive out of whack? And it makes it a little bit easier to break down and understand why I've made these decisions, you know, and what can I do in the future. And I suppose ask, you know, my higher power to help me balance that out and not be driven so hard with these imbalanced instincts, right? It just makes sense, right? You know, you make your also part of these instincts being out of whack, you start making demands on people that they can't be met. And that was another thing that I really had trouble with. I would be making demands on people that they could not meet those demands. And it was because my instincts were out of whack. I thought that they needed to do what I said for my well-being, for me to be okay, but none of that's true. And then you get into conflict with people. It was one of my biggest things to grow through. I still do it, but to grow through and check when it's happening. And of course we get to the amends part, and so I had to make amends to that man. And I went and got my black belt first, let me tell you that. I was like, I'm gonna go finish this black belt thing before I even try on this journey, because what do? I've had multiple restraining orders. How do I approach this person? And then go like, hey, sorry for what I did. It just didn't feel right. So I talked with people about what I could do. I talked with an attorney, you know, I went ahead and did that. And I finally got to, and I had that resentment for about 7 years. So this is about 7 years into sobriety that I did this. And I would constantly pray for that resentment to be released from me. Like, so 7 years, I would not let up on getting that resentment resolved. And one day when I was meditating, I had this thought, and I wasn't even thinking about it, but I had this thought, and all it said was, he couldn't stop doing that more than you could stop drinking on your own. And I understood. For some reason, I understood. I had a tiny bit of compassion and believed that he could not stop doing that any easier than I could stop drinking. And I was just fortunate and blessed enough to be taken along a path of people that could help me, and he was not. And so I finally was like, all right, okay, I'm gonna make a little prayer. If God, if you want me to make this amends, put him in front of me, because I don't know how else to do this. And I remember getting out of martial arts class, and I checked my phone, and I got this message from his wife who said, hey, we have some of your stuff in the garage, do you want to come and get it? And I was like, well, fuck. Guess I got to do this now. Yeah, I'll come get it. So I made the amends. And I knew it was going to cause trouble. I knew there was going to be this new set of troubles with it. But I did it anyway. And I was like, I'm just going to go on faith that I'm going to be fine, that I'm going to be okay. And I was. I didn't like a lot of the things that were happening, but I was okay. I was not harmed, physically harmed, you know. I appreciated that Alcoholics Anonymous and a higher power gave me the power to do that, because that's certainly not something that I would have done or even thought to do before I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was really glad that I was able to do that. It goes right to, like, it says in the book, you know, you might have to make amends to someone who harmed you more. And that's certainly what I think is one of those situations. But I did it right, and I didn't talk about what he did. I just talked about my side. And I wasn't a good wife. I mean, beans on our faces, drunk on the corner of Bath and Drunken McDrunkerson. I wasn't a good wife. I, obviously ran off with that guy for a little bit. I just wasn't a good wife. So what was I gonna? I had just said I wasn't a good wife, and I had to admit that. That was true. I mean, there's a lot of situations in life where you've got somebody who's doing some nefarious, unsavory things to you, and you have a couple of choices about how you're going to respond. But I am one of those ones that tends to react, But it's almost like a trap. I mean, they kind of talk about that in the book, but certainly in groups and stuff, about that trap of being, provoked to do something when there are other choices. And it's almost like that, if I can get that space between the thought of having a drink and actually drinking, I could probably get that space between reacting or respond to something that I don't need to respond to. I don't need to accept the invitation to a fight. I don't. So I continued with my martial arts journey and did all of that, and I'm now a master, which is kind of frightening to me. A master is sword fighting, doing all that fun stuff, and I really, really love it. And so now I guess I'm credentialed to teach now, which I'm pretty excited about, because you all know where I'm going to go to be teaching, right? the DV shelters are women, right? Like, I'll show you how to handle this situation. I got you. And I am not a good person about doing a 10-step every day, but I have a good structure for it. And when I was doing it every day, I was actually pretty happy. Nothing really bothered me. When I was meditating every day, nothing really bothers me. Everything is like water off my back, like a duck's back, when I'm meditating. But I structured the 10-step to sort of give me a way to, like, I don't know what happened today. I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast, like 10 minutes after I ate it. I kind of structured it to, like, okay, did I move my body? Did I help my mind? How did I do at work? How did I do at home? How did I do with my friends? And that helped me kind of detail, okay, where was I, doing well, or where did I need to talk to somebody about what happened? But I'm the kind of one, like, I'm able to, like, have a high pain threshold before I'll talk about something that really bothers me. So it's a bad habit. It's a really bad habit. Like, I'll just wait till it really, really bothers me, and I probably am not going to drink again, but I might commit suicide. I am that person. I'm definitely that person today. Like, probably not going to drink. That's too much on my pride. But I'll certainly check out. And I'm not really afraid to talk about that. But that's certainly, especially early on, was part of my active working mind. Was there's another way out of this where you don't have to do anything, because it's a lot of work. I mean, my hat's off to everyone in this room trying to do these things, but it's a lot of work. It's scary, and it's hard, and it's not the most pleasant thing sometimes. That's why you have to get, like, friends that are pleasant, like, kind of keep your mind off of that stuff. But when I started sponsoring, I think, like, early on, I got a bunch of commitments, and I was doing the thing, and I was doing all that stuff, and I ended up helping these girls. And it's like, when you're sponsoring or not, when you're helping someone, you're not just helping that person. You're, like, giving somebody their daughter back, or you're giving somebody their dad back. Like, the ripples of effects that we have being healers are amazing. Because I remember what it felt like when my boyfriend started drinking again, and I loved him, and it was terrible, and he started drinking again, and I remember that feeling, and I was like, I haven't been here before, but now I know what I was doing to people. I know exactly what I was doing to people. And I was like, this is terrible. And it was really difficult. I was like, why don't you just, like, read the book and make the list of people you hate? And it doesn't work that way sometimes. It just doesn't work that way sometimes. And I was really, really pleased to see AA bring him right back. And he got sober again. And then he went out again. And he got sober again. And he went out again. But everybody welcomed him. Everybody welcomed him. There was one person that didn't, but I still hate her. But, like, pretty much people, people that are, having a struggle with this thing, God bless you if you come back. You tell me that it works. When I'm not feeling like, is this really a thing? Am I still alcoholic? And, I'm bored of this, or it's hard, or I don't want to, and I hate that person, and I don't want to see their face at that meeting. When I see people coming back, I know this thing freaking works, because they were here before, and they went and checked the other part of the story, and they came on back. And I'm like, God, okay, this is a real deal. This thing actually it's a real deal. There's no other thing in the U.S. or medical system that can deal with us. There isn't, and they are very frustrated by it. I think they're very frustrated by it that doctors can't solve it. I think they get really frustrated by us. I mean, that doctor that was treating me for the broken neck was just like, you piece of shit. You know, I could see him telling me that, and I could see the nurses saying, you piece of shit. You know, with their eyes, they didn't tell me that. But, you know, I could see, they're like, here's another one, just doing the same thing over and over again, but we get it. We get it. We know why you drank and came back. And we pray for when you go out. Unfortunately, that guy that came in and came out and came in and came out, he didn't make it. He died last year. Oh man, that just crushed me so hard. Because I loved him. And sometimes that happens. And that girl that scooped me up and was bigger than life, she didn't make it either. I was like, fuck, why was it the good ones? You know, why is it the good ones? And I don't want to leave on a sad note, so let's get out of this. Okay, so when you're helping people, I've noticed throughout the years that there's some sort of deals where I see people like, oh my God, I'm crying. Thank God there's tissues. Thank you. Oh God, fuck, that sucks, they died. I've seen some interesting things with sponsorship where people think, well, you got to do what I do or you're going to die. You got to do what I say or you're going to die. I've heard it before. I've heard it told to me. Go to the meetings I want you to do or you're going to die or I'm going to fire you. I'm not going to help you anymore. But my particular message and branding is all we do is deliver the pizza. We don't have to make sure they eat the pizza. We don't have to make sure they like the pizza. We want to make it, you know, attractive. We're not promoting attraction, not promotion, but we just got to deliver the pizza. If they don't want to eat the pizza, they throw the pizza in our face. That's what they do. We just got to deliver the pizza. And now in my life, I can tell you what's going on in my life. I got a 10-minute warning, so I can tell you how amazing my life is. Well, sometimes I'm pretty damn sick, so, you know, when I'm not doing these things. And I've had, you know, a couple of months or maybe 6 of not the best time in the world, but I sit around and look at my life. I've got this amazing place, which I never would have been able to afford. I've got this job that I got because I lost a job. I got laid off and I was broke as hell and didn't know what to do, and I got this other job and it ended up being a launch pad for a career that I've had there for 15 years. And I climbed my way to the top and I made more money and I got a nice place and I got a really cool car that's real fast. And I like that car, you know, and I've got all those things, but I want to tell you all the things. They're not as good as having a connection with another person who truly sees you, hears you, loves you when you're having a problem and you're just trying to stay away from the drink. It's way more valuable to me. And don't get me wrong, I love those things and I don't want to let them go. But I also am like very clear that all of those things could go away if I start drinking again. All of those things will go away. They're not going to stay. This is all material stuff that absolutely I put them before, you know, doing the right thing or saying yes to a speaking commitment when I have anxiety so bad that I don't even take cakes at meetings. You know, I'll take the, you know, okay, I'll say yes to the speaking engagement. And even though I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or I feel like I'm scatterbrained and sometimes I'm funny and sometimes I'm not and sometimes I'm crying, when I do those things, I know that I'll be able to keep those things. But also, you know, life can happen and take those things away. It has nothing to do with drinking or how I'm operating in life. And I know that very well. So that helps me stay in a lot of gratitude about what's going on in my life and what I've built. You know, overall, it's a pretty good deal. I worked really, really hard at it. I worked really, really hard at going to book studies and trying to understand what this is saying. When I got bored of this, I looked up other literature. And one of the most amazing things about our Reluctantly Willing meeting is we don't really follow any rules, thank God. We don't follow any rules, but we do focus on literature that's within the program, but isn't necessarily the book. So if you're getting bored of things and you want to learn something else, there's such amazing literature out there, written by Bill, along with the 12 and 12. That's an amazing piece of book. But there's other stuff too. If you're feeling like you're a little bit like, this is getting a little dry, look up that literature. I guarantee you'll get like a new, like sort of vigor about what we do and about how we seek for a quiet heart. And that's the thing that we seek, you know, when they talk about, we just want that quiet heart. Because again, we've been grieving so long. We've been in so much pain. We've had so many things happen to us. We've done so many things to ourselves. It's like, give yourself a chance to not grieve anymore and just, you know, accept the joys of life. Like, why not? You deserve it. I'll tell you, every single one of these people in this room deserves that. Even if you don't feel like it, you deserve it. You feel like you've done some really shitty things. We all have. You know, I haven't talked about some of the real shitty things I've done because we're in a public place, but I've done some shitty things and continue to sometimes, you know. But, you know, if you can just give it a chance, it's probably a pretty good deal for you too. I can't promise because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in your life, but I know that it's been an amazing experience, and there's been a lot of joy and a lot of laughter. And I remember laughing with Scott very early in sobriety. We just sit there and laugh and laugh and laugh, and we don't even remember what we were laughing about. But find those people. Find those people. If you're feeling like this isn't working, find those people, because they might be just the bridge that's keeping you. They're standing between you and a drink, and that's all you've got to do for that day. You know, that's all you got to do. If you wake up sober, if you got one day, you've got the same amount of time I do. You got the same amount of time I do. What are you going to do with that day? What one thing to move yourself forward? You're probably going to be okay. I think that's all I got. Can I end early? Is that? Oh, thank God. Okay, thank you.
Let's thank our speaker, Amy from Santa Barbara, once again.